Big dramatic changes in the BJP. Is the Prime Minister showing RSS and Nagpur who's the boss? I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story, and this is our big focus on the program today as we look at stalwarts who are actually no longer in the top decision making body of the party. We're talking, of course, about Minister Nitin Gadkari and Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan, both of whom find themselves outside of the BJP's parliamentary board meeting. Both men are extremely close to the RSS. B.S. Yediyurappa makes a comeback. This was to some extent expected ahead of elections in Karnataka, but Devendra Fadnavis is, of course, the rising star of the moment after having secured that government in Maharashtra finds a place in a key election panel of the BJP. A surprise miss exclusion is Yogi Adityanath. Despite his second consecutive win in the state of Uttar Pradesh, Mr. Adityanath is not in the parliamentary board meeting, raising many eyebrows. And like I said, the question that arises from this big BJP revamp as we look at who's in and who's out is whether Narendra Modi and the BJP is now officially bigger than the RSS. Let's introduce the guests on the program today. We're joined by my friend and senior journalist from Maharashtra, Varun Singh. Varun had first forecast the rise of Devendra Fadnavis, and it's great to see you here, Varun. Also joining us, of course, is senior political commentator and journalist, my senior in the profession, Rahul Dev. Rahul ji, always great to see you. Namaskar. Tehseen Poonawalla, Congress supporter, political analyst, is with us. Namaskar, Tehseen. And Ashwani Shahi, senior leader of the BJP from Uttar Pradesh. Namaskar, Ashwani ji. Great to see all of you. And sabse pehle, Rahul, I'd like to start with you. If you were to look at the big picture, now, if you look at the two men who've been dropped, a chief minister and a union minister, when I say dropped, I mean from the parliamentary board, party, ये दोनों ही जो व्यक्ति हैं, इनके आरएसएस से करीब ताल्लुकात है. They are very close to the RSS. They're favorites of the traditional RSS. Mr. Gadkari in particular is seen to be an RSS man. What do you make of their being dropped, Rahul ji, from the parliamentary board?
Firstly, it's now completely Modi-Shah BJP.
Yes.
RSS, of course, is there, will always remain there at the backbone of BJP in many ways, more ways than one. But the stamp of these two personalities, especially Modi, is now firmly established, and his hold over the party is also very established. It's very clear. It's a political, completely out and out political BJP that is emerging now. A BJP which is also being readied for the future. It is not. In some ways, there are some inductions which can be called as coming from as baggage of history. I mean, they are far too senior and they have not been there, and they have been re-inducted or firstly inducted. But all these changes have to be looked at in the context of the coming elections, and then thereafter the future course of action and the future structure and character of BJP that is likely to emerge. A BJP which is there for the future. So we have to take the two droppings separately, slightly. It's RSS being related to the RSS, very close to the RSS is one factor, but they also have their own individual factors also.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. I mean, firstly, I think when you say that this is purely a Modi-Shah BJP, can I just follow up on that and ask you, Rahul ji, is the BJP, at least under Narendra Modi, now officially bigger than the RSS? Because, some of us are old enough to remember that time when, let's say, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, an extremely popular prime minister, he could not appoint ministers in certain portfolios because of the RSS veto power. Today, that veto power doesn't exist. I mean, remember Jaswant Singh? I mean, there were so many examples that we can think of. Today, that veto power, the RSS veto power seems to have vanished. Would you agree?
I wouldn't be so clear-cut in my interpretation. You see, BJP, the RSS remains there, and there is a better understanding between Bhagwat and Narendra Modi today than that existed between Atalji and the then RSS leadership, the Sarsang Chalak and other senior people. Modi has given to the RSS what no one else has given in the past, including Atalji. Modi has given RSS to a full majority government twice. This is the I would say apogee of the political achievement, the ultimate dream that the RSS had, and not just a simple majority, but a very strong majority. So this means that his contribution to the ultimate dream of RSS is by far, in political terms, the greatest so far.
And
So
before I open it up, one last question. You said every person dropped has to be seen on their own terms. Let's look at Nitin Gadkari. Nitin Gadkari has enjoyed a reputation for being a high-performing minister in this government. Yet he does not find a place in the parliamentary board. It is no secret that though the RSS loves Nitin Gadkari, the Prime Minister does not. Perhaps this comes from rumors in 2019 that Gadkari had prime ministerial ambitions. How do you see the omission of Nitin Gadkari, Rahulji?
I see it in conjunction with the induction of Devendra Fadnavis, who is also equally close to, or I would say, liked by or loved by RSS. He's also from Nagpur. So they are both from Nagpur. And Nitin Gadkari has one distinction from everyone else. Over the last few years, he has shown a very distinct personality and mind of his own, and he has not hesitated to speak his mind. He has often taken a line which is different from the party line or from the Modi line.
Yeah.
So, and his efficiency, his competence, his standing on his own, his stature, individual stature remains very, very high. So he was earlier also seen as a potential replacement for Modi. And another person who has not been taken, which is the biggest surprise apart from Nitin Gadkari, is Yogi. So this is a common factor between these two. So
that they both are independent-minded personalities in themselves, basically. So that's the perfect cue for me to go to Ashwani ji. Ashwani ji, Rahul ji का कहना है कि दो omissions काफी striking है. Nitin Gadkari, जिनका अपना एक personality है, and Yogi Adityanath, an extremely sort of rising star in the BJP firmament. बात चर्चा तो ये भी होती है कि after Modi who तो अब Yogi Adityanath का नाम आता है, and yet he's not there in the parliamentary board. As a UP BJP leader, as a supporter of Yogi Adityanath, क्या आप थोड़े disappointed हैं?
बरखा जी, नहीं, ये पार्टी के शीर्ष नेतृत्व का फैसला है और ये सारे देश के कार्यकर्ताओं ने इसको आत्मसात किया है और करेंगे ही करेंगे, क्योंकि जो फैसले होते हैं हमेशा भारतीय जनता पार्टी के फैसले, जब से माननीय मोदी जी की 14 से सरकार आई है और माननीय मोदी जी इस देश के प्रधानमंत्री बने, हमारे शीर्ष नेता हैं, तो उनके जो फैसले जो भी वो लेते हैं वो पार्टी के बेहतरी के लिए लेते हैं और पार्टी में हमेशा उसका एक फायदा नजर आया है। हमेशा लोग जो है कयास लगाते हैं, चाहे मीडिया हो, अपोजिशन के लोग हो, हमेशा कयास लगाते रहते हैं। जैसे रविशंकर जी को हटाने की बात हुई या जावड़ेकर जी को हटाने की बात हुई, तो भी लोगों ने अपने आप को ये कहा कि इनको क्यों हटाया गया, क्या। लेकिन ये पार्टी में भारतीय जनता पार्टी अगर कहीं से कोई काम करती है तो ये दूसरे दलों की तरह नहीं, सेकेंड लाइन हमेशा तैयार करती है और समय आने पर सभी नेताओं को, क्योंकि एक हमारे यहाँ ह्यूज क्वांटिटी में एक अच्छे नेता हैं जो हमेशा, मतलब समझ लीजिए कि बेंच स्ट्रेंथ हमारी बहुत अच्छी है, कौन आगे जाएगा, कैसे आगे जाएगा, उसको निकाल कर ले आते हैं। देवेंद्र फडणवीस जी जब मुख्यमंत्री बनाए गए थे तो सबने बड़ा कयास लगाया था, नए हैं, ये हैं, ऐसे हैं, लेकिन आज देखिए उनको जब अभी उप मुख्यमंत्री बनाया गया तो लोगों ने कहा कि उनको जो है उनका डिमोशन कर दिया गया। तो ये कयास हमेशा लगते रहेंगे। शिंदे जी को मुख्यमंत्री बनाया गया, लेकिन आज जब संसदीय बोर्ड चुनाव प्रचार समिति में उनको जब बनाया गया तो लोगों ने कहा कि देखिए एक नए नेता को भरा गया, वहां पहुंचाया गया। तो ये पार्टी के अंदर की चीज है और भारतीय जनता पार्टी अपने दल के बेहतरी के लिए अब जो भी करना होगा बेहतर करेगी, क्योंकि ये सरकार, हमने देखा है कि माननीय अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी की सरकार थी, देखिए किस तरीके से वो चलाते थे, एक वोट से सरकार गिर गई थी, क्योंकि उनकी अपनी एक आइडियोलॉजी थी। विरोधी लोग यही चाहते थे कि वही भारतीय जनता पार्टी रहे, लेकिन अब जो है नई हवा बह चुकी है, हम लोग हर तरह से, हर दिशा से अपने आप को मजबूत करके चलेंगे।
तो जब
जी,
आपने पाया कि उत्तर प्रदेश की मुख्यमंत्री इस भाजपा के सबसे जो इम्पोर्टेंट डिसीजन मेकिंग बॉडी है उसमें उन्होंने रिप्रेजेंटेशन नहीं पाया, तो आपको हैरानगी नहीं हुई?
दो लोगों का रिप्रेजेंटेशन तो है बरखा जी उत्तर प्रदेश से, माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी और राजनाथ जी का रिप्रेजेंटेशन उत्तर प्रदेश से है। और याद कीजिए, रखने वाली बात यह है कि देश के किसी भी मुख्यमंत्री का नाम कहीं नहीं है उसमें। तो ये एक कोई ऐसी बात नहीं है। और निसंदेह जो है योगी जी एक भविष्य के नेता हैं, बहुत बड़े नेता हैं। और बड़े नेता का मतलब कि हम पाकिस्तान से बड़े देश है उसके वो मुख्यमंत्री हैं, तो वो बड़े तो है ही हैं, लेकिन
हाँ।
उत्तर प्रदेश से दो बहुत बड़ा रिप्रेजेंटेशन है। इसलिए पार्टी कार्यकर्ताओं को कोई भी आश्चर्य नहीं हुआ, कुछ भी नहीं हुआ, और हम इस फैसले का तहे दिल से स्वागत करते हैं, पार्टी के अग्रिम सुखद और भविष्य की कामना के साथ।
Okay, Tehseen, something was striking me while I was listening to both Rahul ji and Ashwani ji, that the BJP in some ways is becoming like what the Congress used to be. And I think LK Advani used to call this also the Congressification. Rahul will remember. ये उनका एक बड़ा pet phrase होता था, the Congressification of the BJP. And one thing that strikes me is that the Congress made the fatal mistake of weakening its state level talent, right? And a high command culture developed in the Congress. Here too, what strikes me is regional talent. Yogi Adityanath, Shivraj Chauhan, not finding a place in the parliamentary board, being shown in a way the boundary, the red line. Nitin Gadkari, I think, as Rahul mentions, is a case by himself. Tehseen, your comments.
So, you did steal the line, Congressification of the BJP, and it is something I wanted to start with. But I don't want to focus just on Shivraj Singh Chauhan ji or Nitin Gadkari ji being removed. That has been discussed a lot in the media, and that's the most obvious names because those are the biggest names. I want to discuss the other names, but I'll tell you something which is personal, and this is more than not wearing my Congress hat, but a political analyst hat. When I saw the BJP storm back to power in 2019, and I remember I was in another television, you were in another television channel, and I joined you that evening in 2019. What struck me was the diversification in the Bharatiya Janata Party as opposed to the Congress, which had seemed to have lost it. Now, the high command has served the Congress well. At this moment, the Congress is a weak party. When I see this today, and it has not been just this new parliamentary board, but over some time, what led me to surprise was the parliamentary board, 5 posts were lying vacant for some time now. And that is very unlike the BJP. Venkaiah Naidu ji and Gehlot ji were promoted to constitutional posts, vice president and governor. 3 had passed away, Sushma ji, Arun Jaitley ji, and Anant Kumar ji. So you had a parliamentary board of 11 being run by half, that is 6 people. Now that is not BJP, that is Congress. And that Congressification started then. Now when people put it, this is just a final formality. Now, if you look at all of these names, Yedurappa ji is obviously comes into this because Yedurappa ji, the Lingayat vote is a little upset with the BJP. There were allegations of CS being charged commission. Bomai ji has not been able to get the Lingayat vote together. There is massive infighting between the Karnataka unit of the BJP, and Siddaramaya's show of strength has actually spooked the BJP. Between Siddaramaya, Yedurappa and Deve Gowda ji, they command 35% of the vote in Karnataka. So the BJP will not want to have an angry Yedurappa. So they've gone past the 75 age retirement age and they've accommodated Yedurappa ji in the highest decision-making body. The other names are very, very interesting. K. Lakshman ji, he comes from Telangana. Now we know the BJP wants to make a base out there. He's an OBC leader. The BJP had its, I think, executive meeting, its last executive meeting in Telangana. So it wants to create an impression in Telangana. Sonowal ji will be a surprise. You all are all veterans here, very, very learned. But if you ask the average man what portfolio does Sonowal ji, they'll have to Google to know that he has sports or he has, he has Ayush. They won't even know. So he's not a heavyweight. But that's a message, in my opinion, to Himanta Biswa Sharma that listen, yes, we've accommodated you, you're talented, but we also have options. Again, Sudha Yadav ji, she was a husband passed away. She contested the elections. But there's a very interesting fact about Sudha Yadav. The person who gave her ticket was Modi ji when he was General Secretary in charge Haryana. So he's had a connection with her. And Jatia ji. Now he's known as Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji's loyalist, poet. He's known as to be a poet. His constituency links him with Atal ji. But once again, recently, I think last year, the pictures of his granddaughter went viral with Modi ji playing with a 6-year-old granddaughter. Now, these people who have come into this parliamentary board, each one of them, what I'm trying to say, have a personal connection with Modi. Will this just be a rubber stamp? Because there is no dissent voice. Now, if you remember, one last thing I'll end with, Nitin Gadkari ji had very famously said, not about the parliamentary board, but about the cabinet, that he's one voice that regularly speaks up against the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister accommodates it. Now, that voice has been silenced. Of course, he's speaking about the cabinet. So there is no way else to sort of oppose Modi ji and Amit Shah ji and Nadda ji in this parliamentary board. So it is now the high command culture. The way it is the Congressification of the BJP.
And that's a very interesting point. And I'm going to come to Varun in just a second. But Rahul, do you want to take that the high command culture has gone from the Congress to the BJP? Rahul ji?
It'll be difficult to deny this because clearly the two most important people in the BJP is being run by the combination of Modi and Shah. Everyone knows this. Third would be, I guess, JP Nadda. But again, he would never go against the wishes of these two. So primarily, these are the two only centers of real power. And even if some people are sort of promoted or any action taken apparently by majority or by consultation or discussion, it's a known fact. We all know that. The public also knows that without the concurrence of Modi and Shah, nothing happens. No decision is or will or can be taken. So if this tells you about a Congressification of the BJP, it is true. But we must also think and accept that to run a party of this size and this diversity with strictly democratic norms and strictly democratic principles is not a very viable situation. It has never been so. Even before, even in the Gandhi era also, there were elections from bottom up, but ultimately the decision was left to a few people and to one individual in many cases until he was active and he was in his prime. Even now, in Congress itself, there is still a high command, and there is still you can see the same structure and same character of same ruling, the decision-making process in Congress.
It's fascinating, except of course the Congress model is no longer working for it electorally, and the parts of the Congress model borrowed by the BJP, so to speak, are still working for it. As long as Mr. Modi keeps winning elections, there is going to be no questioning from within the party or within the RSS. Varun, let me take that to you. If we look at the story of two Maharashtra leaders in particular, the rise of Devendra Fadnavis and the fall of Nitin Gadkari, and you locate it within the larger debate about the relationship between the BJP and the RSS, how do you look at this?
See, Barkha Gadkari is out, but he spent a very long time in the parliamentary board as well as the election committee. And now when Fadnavis comes in, he himself is from Nagpur, blue-eye boy of RSS. And till 2 weeks ago, when he was made the deputy chief minister, everyone was crying hoarse that, it's a demotion for him. But now when he is back in the parliamentary committee, he has shown that he is the man running the show in Maharashtra. Nothing happens over here without Fadnavis's intervention or Fadnavis taking the call. Fadnavis is in the steering wheel of the government, and clearly, Gadkari sort of has lost the hold that he once used to have in Maharashtra. He was before becoming the national president of BJP, he was the state president of BJP, one of the longest serving state presidents. But And that too during the time when, we had Munde, a mass leader, Gadkari, who, wasn't much of a mass leader, came from Nagpur, where we never had a MP from BJP. I think he became one of the first MPs from BJP from Nagpur.
But why do you think Gadkari has lost his hold? Like, why did that happen?
Gadkari, he focused more on center after 2010 and 11 when he went there. And if I'm not wrong, it was clear he had ambitions. There is no denial about it. He has spoken it quite often too. And the way he speaks, I have met Gadkari on several occasions. He doesn't hold back his words. If he has to say something immaterial, whether it's going to offend you or it's praise it, or those words are praises, he doesn't hold them. He has been in controversy for several things that actually wouldn't be controversial, but he says it in a way that ends up being controversial.
So you don't see this as Modi showing Nagpur who's the boss, because you
absolutely, because you see other names also. Om Mathur, he is an RSS fellow. Narendra Modi himself is an RSS pracharak. Yadurappa is close to RSS now via BL Santosh. Bhupendra Yadav, who also is close to RSS. There are umpteen number of names in both the committees, the parliamentary committee as well as the election committee, who are close to the RSS. And yesterday's incident of the Rohingya has clearly showed that the RSS still is very important, because in the morning you have Hardeep Singh Puri coming out with a decision, but by the evening it changed. So who actually can make it happen? Because if you see Hardeep Singh Puri's tweet, it had clearly tagged Amit Shah, the Prime Minister, but by evening it had changed. So RSS has not lost its control, but RSS functions in a very different way. There are many elections where it is said that BJP has lost because RSS felt that the candidate or those elections they shouldn't have won because they were not ready to take it.
So it's very interesting. You actually think that Hardeep Singh's sort of public embarrassment is because the RSS quietly made a phone call saying, no, this is not happening. You're not giving homes to Rohingya refugees.
Look, the first one to oppose was VHP, sister concern of RSS or BJP, to be honest. And to be honest, I am telling you, I don't see any disconnect. Sitting in Mumbai, sitting in Maharashtra, where the RSS has one of its most strongest hold, I don't see any disconnect right now between the party and the RSS.
I want to go to Ashwani in a moment, but Tehseen, go ahead. Tehseen.
So, most of the times I agree a lot with what Varun says, but this time I do disagree with him. I do believe that the RSS has been shown its place metaphorically and physically. And why I say physically, if you go back to the visuals of 5th August, when the Ram Mandir Shilanyas was happening, remember the visuals, and if you have it and you ask your team to play it, the Honorable Prime Minister was sitting on a pedestal and the RSS chief was down. That would never happen. They would be at equal levels. Here is the Shilanyas and the Prime Minister is above and the RSS chief is below. And that visual to me then said, look, this is something somebody about in Gujarat, a BJP senior leader in Gujarat told me about Modi-Shah, that they are very good at making the RSS, VHP, Bajrang Dal irrelevant, and ultimately they will have their own cause. The RSS cannot do with them, they cannot do without them. There's just one more thing. I don't want to get into splitting hair because this is not about Hardeep Puri and the Rohingya issue. I feel the BJP period tried to save face yesterday. I'm sure RSS must have called. Varun knows that, and I'm sure RSS must have been upset. But you see the Home Ministry's tweet. They're very, very smart in that tweet. They say, yeah, illegal people will not be settled. Of course, anyone who's illegal will never be settled in India, whether you're Rohingya, Pakistani, Sri Lanka, American. Yeah. The point is, those were United Nations designated refugees who in the Supreme Court, the Modi government has defended and said, look, we are signatories to the United Nations Human Rights Convention, and we will follow the Human Rights Convention, and also we will give them basic human facilities. We're not signatories to the 51 Refugee Convention, but that's what they've said on affidavit in the Supreme Court. So they played it smart to cool down tempers. So illegal people anyways have to be deported, whoever you are. The question is about those who have come to the United Nations program.
But what's your point? What's your point? You don't think that was an RSS veto?
There is an RSS veto, yes, but it isn't as strong as Varun is making out to be. Yes, BL Santosh is General Secretary in charge. Yes, he is a powerful person, but let's face it, BL Santosh cannot stop a decision taken by Modi ji, Amit Shah ji, and Nadda ji. He cannot.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me bring in Ashwani ji at this point that the party, Modi is bigger than the party and the party is bigger than the RSS. क्या आप ये मानेंगे कि ये एक बदलाव बीजेपी में आया है? मैं फिर रिपीट करती हूँ, मोदी जी पार्टी से बड़े हैं और पार्टी आज आरएसएस से बड़ी है।
बरखा जी देखिए, कोई भी संगठन जो है बड़ा होता है, कोई व्यक्ति बड़ा नहीं होता है, और वही मोदी जी पर भी लागू होता है। भारतीय जनता पार्टी एक कार्यकर्ता की पार्टी है। एक आम कार्यकर्ता को प्रधानमंत्री भी बना सकती है, एक आम कार्यकर्ता को महामहिम राष्ट्रपति के पद तक भी अपने सहयोग से पहुंचा सकती है। तो ये संगठन बड़ा होता है, कोई व्यक्ति नहीं बड़ा होता है। दो बातें राहुल जी ने भी कही, तहसीन जी ने भी कही, और आपने भी वही पूछा। तीनों को पूछने का तरीका अलग था, बस बात एक ही थी। राहुल जी ने कहा कि ये मोदी और शाह की बीजेपी है। तहसीन जी ने कहा कि कांग्रेस का कल्चर अब केंद्रीय नेतृत्व वाली बात हो गई, हाई कमान का कल्चर आ गया। देखिए ये, और आरएसएस की बात जहां तक आई तो मैं सबको मिला के ये जवाब देना चाहूंगा कि आरएसएस और बीजेपी की केमिस्ट्री को डिकोड करना असंभव है। असंभव है, मैं ये कहता हूं असंभव है। अगर ये हो जाता तो हम 18 राज्यों में सरकार ना बना पाए होते। अगर ये कांग्रेस कर लेती या कोई आप लोग कर लेते या कोई कर लेता, तो ये असंभव है। ये दोनों, हम कहते हैं, हम शहरों की पार्टी हुआ करते थे। गांव में हमको किसने पहुंचाने का काम किया? रास्ता दिखाने का काम किया आरएसएस ने किया। तो उनके बिना हम अधूरे, हमारे बिना वो अधूरे। तो न कोई ऊंचा रहेगा तहसीन जी, वो उस दिन जो आप कह रहे हैं, हो सकता है कि कोई पैरों में प्रॉब्लम भी हो सकती है, उस दिन किसी ने उस पर ध्यान नहीं दिया, या कुछ और हो सकता है। क्योंकि माननीय मोदी जी जब भी जाते हैं पूजा पाठ करने तो बड़े ही शांत स्वभाव और भक्ति भाव से करते हैं। तो वहां पर ऊंचा और नीचे की बात नहीं हो सकती है। कहीं ये भी माना जा सकता है कि पैरों में कोई प्रॉब्लम हो या कोई और बात हो सकती है। लेकिन यहाँ पर जो हाई कमान का है और मोदी शाह की बीजेपी है, तो राहुल जी, सच्चाई है कि जब से माननीय मोदी जी और शाह साहब आए हैं, ये जोड़ी आई है, भारतीय जनता पार्टी अपने ऊंचाई के शीर्ष पर है। और हम अपने अश्वमेध यज्ञ का घोड़ा छोड़े जा रहे हैं। कांग्रेस के पास भी वो ताकत खत्म हो चुकी कि वो पकड़ ले। देश की सबसे पुरानी पार्टी लगभग अब अपने अस्ताचल की तरफ बढ़ रही है। वो अलग बात है कि कहीं किसी राज्य में पिछलग्गू की तरह आ गए हैं ये लोग, अभी वहां भी कुछ बवाल ही चल रहा है। वो मैं नहीं मानता। तो 3.25 राज्यों में थी, अब 2.5 राज्यों में थी, फिर 3.25 राज्यों में हो गई। लेकिन बरखा जी, मैं एक लाइन कह के अपनी बात को समाप्त करता हूं कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने समय के साथ अपने अंदर बदलाव किया है। अपने प्रतिद्वंदियों से लड़ने की जो ताकत पैदा की है वो नए सिरे से की है, और उसका परिणाम आज पूरे देश में नहीं, पूरे विश्व में है कि सबसे बड़ी पार्टी हम हैं और हिंदुस्तान में सबसे ज्यादा राज्यों में सरकार है। और आने वाले दिनों में, आने वाले चुनाव में हमको कोई निकट का प्रतिद्वंदी नहीं दिखाई देता है कि जो हमको मात दे सके। जी,
I have only 2 minutes left. Before I give Rahul Dev the last word, let me bring in Varun. Varun, any thoughts on the RSS-BJP relationship as you see it? I mean, Nagpur, the fount of the ideological fount of the BJP is in your state. Also,
actually,
yes.
yeah, or else Tehseen takes an offense.
Yes, I had to include him quickly. Yes. Okay,
so yeah,
Varun.
no, actually, I do not see anything, in contravention of what exactly their major plan is. Right now, the RSS and the BJP are working together. You see, in almost all the state elections also, even minuscule elections of corporation, the RSS works together with the BJP over here. And I see in other states also. I covered Uttar Pradesh election over there also. It was visible. I'm going to Gujarat now. I think over there also it is clearly visible. And there are many things that are happening that clearly says. One thing about Gadkari, I would say Gadkari, started focusing more on central. That is the reason over here in state, he sort of lost contact. But he's still a leader over here.
Okay, Tehseen, quickly. I'm giving Rahul the last word. You have a brief interjection, Tehseen, one line.
Yeah, I just think what's bad for Gadkari ji is he kept speaking about a Nehruvian way of politics in his own style of building bridges. And it was rumored in Maharashtra that he wasn't very happy with the way the government was changed. So Gadkari ji always kept saying politics is about building bridges. You cannot have hostility. You must stop. They are not enemies. And I think somewhere down the line, the new BJP does not agree with that.
Okay, Rahul Dev, I'm giving you the last word. You have already said that each omission must be examined on its own terms. But if you were to look at the broad relationship today between Narendra Modi and the RSS, how would you describe it?
I would first like to tell Ashwani ji that what he said is exactly what I said earlier. I said it in English. And I have spent too many years in RSS not to know its relationship, its symbiotic and relationship with the BJP. So I will not say that he has shown BJP his place, not at all. I have said that RSS will give more leeway to Narendra Modi than it has given to any other prime minister, because Modi has given the RSS, as I said, the greatest gift it could have imagined. The greatest, it has fulfilled. He has fulfilled the greatest dream that the RSS had. So the RSS would mostly back Narendra Modi in most things. And even now, the real impact and effectiveness, and I would say the hold of the real influence of RSS in most matters, most decisions being taken in several fields in the country is stronger than ever. So that relationship, it's true that he's right that it's extremely difficult to decode and demystify the relationship. It runs too deep, and people don't understand the RSS from inside. I've had a chance to do so. So this is not the issue. As I said, the other changes, the other inductees also have to be seen and discussed and understood. It's not just Gadkari and non-inclusion of Yogi. There are other strands in these changes that depict a picture of future so far as the BJP is concerned. There is greater state regional representation, social representation, balancing of several factors, balancing of the imperatives of the coming elections, as well as the BJP beyond the elections. So this is how I see it.
Fascinating, and learned a lot from listening to all four of you. I'll leave it there. Rahul, Devji, Ashwani Shahi, Varun, and Tehseen, always a pleasure. And to our audience, thank you for watching. Goodbye. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.